everyone. It is your professor in literature. Today we are going to look at Fathers of Nation. It is a novel written by Paul Bivita, an interesting one. You should. I request you to subscribe and also like. As we continue, please, whenever you like it, tap thumbs up and also subscribe. Let's start. Thematic concerns in this book. The author has shed some light on crucial contemporary concerns on African soil. Among them include theme of intimidation. As the text opens, Abiola Folabi is seen issuing directives to his crew. The members complain about the consistent harassment from him, which does not make him retreat. All the big four are ready and willing to square it out with him during their first meeting, wondering why he has been hiding his identity all along. Elsewhere in the text, Dr. Folabi is seen pouring himself out at Fiona. His intimidation remarks are seen when he accuses Fiona of being overly aggressive and ambitious, to the extent of harassing people in an attempt to rise to the peak of her career. Theme 2, optimism. All four members of Mr. Longway's crew are victims of circumstances. They have suffered injustices under the ruleship of the sitting governments. They are optimistic that Path Alpha is the remedy to the issues within which they are currently wallowing. Similarly, the summit at the Bajuls is spearheaded by the fact that presidents are optimistic about the much anticipated change. The third one, pride and prejudice. Abiola's pride is what takes center stage in the text. The man's arrogance in dealing with the pertinent issues is seen as he deals with other people in the text. His cold nature, especially in how he deals with anyone he feels is junior to him, is second to none. Although Abiola lacks the moral authority to shout expletives to his crew members, he does spare them a minute of anguish every time he gets a chance. One such victim is Karanja Kemani, to whom he refuses to give his true identity, making him call him the arrogant, educated Nigerian. Tahir's pride makes him take revenge against Rama, an innocent junior worker at his office, who ironically meant well when she rejected his proposal. As a result of his lack of understanding, Tahir ends up in a cesspit of remorse and self-pity, having destroyed the life of a young maiden, of course. He loses his eye, and the maiden loses her eye. So sad. Eh? The pride of different African heads of state is also depicted. The author, through authorial intrusion, is keen to inform us of how the heads of state disagree on petty issues. The next, hopelessness is a theme. Karanja Kemani is a major victim of disillusionment. Following the death of his daughter, who is called Tuni, Asia, his wife, decides to quit her marriage and moves in with Walomu, newborn Walomu. This bred feelings of betrayal and bitterness, which makes him seek revenge against Walomu. A hopeless Karanja walks over to Walomu's office and picks a fight with him. Karanja finds himself in jail, following which his lecturing license is suspended. So sad. A state of hopelessness is witnessed when the heads of state are denied the right to vote for the ideologies they want. As the story closes, we witness the harassment of heads of state and psychological torture that sees everyone swearing not to attend the closing event. The next theme that we are going to look at is defiance. Defiance. Kimani defies the orders and directives that are issued by Afolabi. He is quick to indicate that he is a man of his own self and that he should know the identity of Abiola before any other business. Kimani also displays defiance when he storms Walomu's office and threatens to clobber the man after taking his wife. He does not seem to realize the danger he is getting himself into. Another point, Fiona defies her employer at Gambian News when he is called to attend to some duties urgently at the office, leaving Afolabi hanging during an interview session. Similarly, all African state presidents defy a method introduced in the summit to determine the legitimacy and acceptance of way alpha and path omega. They can see through the trickery and deception in the eyes of the same proponent, who has ridiculously not read the documents. Elsewhere in the text, Tahil defies his leader when he calls off the manufacturer of nuclear ammunition in his country. Tahil swears to continue with the great vision of remaking the feast of Allah alone. This makes him a suitable candidate for Path Alpha's steering. The next theme is socio-economic stratification. Socio-economic stratification. The dilapidated state of affairs of houses in the outskirts of Banjul is looked into. The author, through authorial intrusion, is quick to point out that the people of the Gambian capital are living squalor lives. The contrast between these overpopulated places and sparsely populated high-end streets with fresh air points to socio-economic stratification. We are also informed that the government had to bring down living quarters and kiosks to clear the roads for the incoming heads of states, which was done occasionally during such events. The simple fact that not everyone can afford the high-end hotels at Banjul, which is a preserve of presidential personalities, also brings about stratification among the people. The next theme, glorification of the African leader. Since time immemorial, the African leader has always been glorified. The Egyptian pharaoh was regarded as a god and revered by subjects. This mantle has been passed down from generation to generation until the African leader is seen as superpower who should solve all the problems of their people. This lack of goodwill, motivation, and innovativeness has led the African continent to wallow in poverty 6 years after independence. Next theme, misuse of power. Misuse of power. Misuse of power. From the definition concept, power is the ability to control people or things, thus making them behave in a particular way. Power should be used in a defined way to ensure its effectiveness. However, if power-hungry individuals mistakenly come to power, the subject is more often than not likely to suffer. This is the exact case with most leaders on African soil. Melusi recounts how he and his countrymen fought against the colonialists in Zimbabwe. When they finally evacuated them, the commander of Melusi's group became the head of the government. The national anthem was sung, "Blessed be the land of Zimbabwe," and it continues. It was also sung in Ndebele and Shona, indicative of fine unity. Melusi points out that his tribe did not hit it off with the new ruler, so they were hit out. So sad. Instead, expeditions were dispatched with the sole aim of wiping out his entire tribe. His tribe is Ndebele, and the other then one that acted like the enemy is the Shona, though they should be friends. The next theme, misuse of state agencies. Misuse of state agencies. Shortly before the arrival of heads of state at Banjul, the police are seen evacuating people to create a way for the passage of senior government dignitaries and the visiting presidents. This is typical of African states, where roads and streets are blocked during national events to allow the ruler to move freely without dealing with the periodical traffic congestion. The other point, the narrow-mindedness and lack of nationalistic tendencies are portrayed that is, the government fails to solve the crisis through infrastructural development, since they are sure of safe passage every time they deem necessary. Another point, elsewhere in the text, the government in Zimbabwe is seen using the army to evacuate its citizenry from its rightful place due to selfishness. Although Melusi and his tribesmen fought hand in hand with the leader, he betrays them and starts fighting the countrymen. So Melusi doesn't have a place to stay now. Revenge is the next theme. Revenge entails all the evil things people do to make others suffer as a hit back for making them suffer in earlier life. Vita, that is Paul B. Vita, capitalizes on this theme by coining a group of four men who have suffered earlier injustices in their respective countries. The four are Karanja, Melusi, Chamaka, and Tahil. Join hands with the sole aim of hitting back at their respective governments. Another point, Tahil hits back at Rama when she turns down his proposal to go out with him. This displays the pettiness in the man's mind. Through a single stroke of a pen, Tahil loses one eye, but consoles himself. She is lucky she did not interfere with his dental formula. That is petty. Next point. The negative aspects of culture and tradition are brought to the limelight here. The author seems to pose the question, to what extent is religion right? To what extent is religion right? It should be noted that the case lacked any witnesses, yet the Qadi went ahead to rule in favor of Tahil. The patriarchy in the society depicted above is also brought to the limelight in the same way. Another theme, internal displacement of people. Internal displacement of people. In the 21st century, the world, through the United Nations organization, struggles to enhance world peace and maintain a conducive working environment to everyone. However, most states have remained elusive from this policy since their leaders enjoy massive support from the veto powers and other states which interests in their terrains. In a bid to escape the possibility of another world war, the former Allied powers and NATO have found themselves retracting from such wrangles. Such is the case with African states that enjoy such support. Crime against humanity has been perpetrated as brought out by the author. Here, a bomb is said to have been dropped over the United States, leading to the displacement of people. Older people are displaced from their homes due to old age and relocated into homes for the state's destitute to provide their relatives with enough room for economic progress. Such a character is Pamela's father, or Dr. Folabi's father-in-law, who is ridiculously given more attention by the serving young maid than by his own family. Funny. This practice is sharply juxtaposed with the African tradition of caring for the old until death, thus servicing to bring out a sense of belonging. Better still, Afolabi is brought a girl from the village to assist him in bearing children, since his white wife won't comply. According to the tenants that join the society, it is paramount that a man must bear and raise children during his lifetime to offer continuity to the next generation. Still closer home, the president of Zimbabwe displaces the Dembele from their home in the name of having different political allegiance. Although nobody in particular has been caught aggressing the current leader, the general assumption is that they are rebels. They are rebels because they belong to a different tribe from Shona. This portrays pettiness and lack of standards in African politics. The severe lack of intellect and selfishness among the ruling class makes them rally their subjects not based on issues or agendas and policies, but on tribal cocoons due to ignorance, disease, and lack of civilization. The next theme is civil unrest. Civil unrest. Another negative attribute of African states, civil unrest, has been portrayed in the text. This crops up as a result of feelings of betrayal among subjects from the ruling class. Here, most people are seen to riot against transgressions. The Ndebele Zimbabweans, for instance, do not take kindly their constant and consistent harassment by sitting government through people who are supposed to be protecting the citizenry. This brings out the theme of misuse of state agencies. The next theme of technological advancements. Technological advancements. Among the contemporary issues that Africa as a continent has really delayed and showed reluctance to embrace its technological advancement, the author has employed characters like Nick Sentinel as the epitome of technology advancement. Although the young man works for the VOA, Voice of America, the fact that he is currently situated in the capital of Gambia, Banjul, indicates that Africa is also on its way to picking up the trend. The VOA is sharply juxtaposed with the Gambian Times, which lacks technological advancement and remunerates its workers poorly. For example, Fiona Mackenzie, poorly paid and also doesn't know much about technology. Next, Fiona says that what she was paid at Gambia Times is peanut compared to what the world is paying to offer her, notwithstanding that her job is contractual basis. During one of their civil conversations, Nick Sentinel reveals to Fiona that the VOA has set an eye in the sky. This satellite is capable of eavesdropping on what is being discussed by people from a very long distance. He points out this is a combatant mechanism for coping with the rising criminals. They are becoming more sophisticated in their day-to-day practices. Nick is also keen to point out that there is a group of 5 men currently at Banjul who are being coordinated by one of them, referring to himself as the guide. Next theme is social discord. Social discord. Disintegration in the society is portrayed through the 5 main characters in the text. Before the onset of Way Omega and Path Alpha, the 4 recruits are said to have been transgressed by their present systems in their motherlands. For example, Professor Kimani and the others. Next theme, moral erosion. Moral erosion. One of the fabrics that join society together is its morals. Morals are a part of a culture that is affected by the rules and regulations that must be followed by every member of the said culture. However, over the years, societies have lost this vital tenacle practiced over generations. Even Africa, which prides on its rich cultural heritage, is really undergoing moral erosion due to urbanization and globalization. The cherry picking of Western characteristics while ignoring African qualities has been witnessed in various spheres. The author supplies us with the gastric details of how Fiona, a renowned journalist, is harassed in broad daylight by a man who refers to himself as the Liberian Maula. As Afolabi confronts him over his ill mannerism, the man is keen to point out that nobody dares question him. This is indicative that the African society is losing its sense of belonging and moral sense, as well as punishment for wrongdoers as a result of permissiveness in the society. The next theme, religious blackmail. Religious blackmail. Africa has remained incurably religious. It is argued that religion is the opium of the poor, since the poor turn to religion as source of solace and moral guidance. The strengths and weaknesses of Islam and Christianity religions have been clearly identified. Based on Islam, Tahil is considered the perfect representative of this religion. The extreme emphasis on the element of dress code is portrayed, since humans are naturally rebellious and require to be controlled by using rules to achieve order in society. However, blackmail is portrayed when Rama's non-compliance to Tahil's demands is punished in the name of showing her body in public. This brings out the elements of deceit, treachery, and the place of woman in this society, whose codes are constantly constricting on women, making them suffer innocently. Elsewhere in the text, the author introspects into Christianity through the person of Pastor. Let us look at him. Chiamaka of Nigeria. The man uses his podium to pour seeds of discord on a government that seems to function less in a bid to achieve the demands of its own people. This sharply contrasts with the teaching of the Holy Book, which insists on respect for the authorities. Next, blackmail is portrayed in how Pastor Chiamaka forces amens out of his congregation. They seem disinterested in political delegations, owing to the missing number of citizens who have gone down the path in the past. The next theme, corruption and impunity. Corruption and impunity. Impunity is a new theme that is getting introduced. Corruption is the giving and receiving bribes to command undeserved favors from individuals. At the same time, impunity is the permissiveness that crops up in society due to being corrupted in the mind. The author has discussed the two social concerns alongside each other. Most African leaders seem to have risen into power through this path. A critical example in the text is Walomu, the MP, who is said to have bribed his way into office. Once in power, such people grab land and other people's wives, thus breaking the family, which is an important pillar of society. We see Walomu taking Kemani's wife. This is what characterizes impunity. The next theme, place of woman in the society. Place of woman in the society in this novel of Fathers of Nations. The place of women in society is given prior introspection in the text. None of the arriving heads of state is given a feminine accord, since all of them are men. Even the women mentioned in the text are not given any preference. The only character who seems to fight male dominance is Tuni Kemani, who later loses her life, not in the hands of men, but in a greasy road accident. While this leans on negligence, it also indicates that women do not have breathing space in this male-dominated society. Any violent opposition to this fact leads to the extinction of the individual. We stop there. We'll add more, and if you have found any other, you still can share with me. I remind you, please subscribe and also like. You are good audience. Keep up. You are really important.